Hello and welcome to the Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker Dancer Guide. My name is Julia and I will be covering the ins and out of the dancer job at level 90. Dancer, alongside Bard and Machinist, is one of the three physical range DPS. The Dancer job focuses on providing sizable damage buffs to the party through the means of a big 2-minute raid buff and a handful of single target buffs to a single target member of their choosing. The Dancer job also brings a good amount of utility, making it great for optimizing your runs to let your party squeeze out as much damage as possible. Dancer's main gimmick is the dance partner mechanic. Using close position on a party member, they turn into your dance partner, providing said party member with a number of buffs. You therefore want to put your dance partner on someone that does a lot of damage and is able to abuse said buffs to their fullest extent. In a vacuum, where gear and skill level is equal, the priority would be as such. Ninja over Monk and Reaper, over Dragoon and Sam, over Red Mage and Black Mage, over Summoner, over Machinist, over Bard, over Dancer. Sadly, the world is not as cut and dry as we'd like it to be, and skill level, differences in gear, and other factors can have an effect on who the optimal dance partner is. Weigh the pros and cons of each of your party members and decide a dance partner based on your own discretion. The Dancer's job gauges are central to their gameplay, and here is how they work. The first gauge is relatively simple. On the top you see a number of feathers appear. These represent your Fandance 1 procs. Each displayed feather allows a single use of either Fandance 1 or Fandance 2. The bar that's slowly filling up with the corresponding number is your Esprit gauge. Esprit is generated whenever you or your dance partner use a GCD weapon skill. 50 Esprit is spent on Saber Dance, which is a very hard-hitting GCD ability. The second gauge we have shows us our dance steps. Dancer has two dance abilities, Standard Step and Technical Step. When initiating these dances you are given random steps to press, 2 for Standard Step and 4 for Technical Step. These step abilities will replace your main single target and AoE abilities and turn into the dance steps of their corresponding color. To perform these steps correctly, you simply look at the gauge and do the steps from left to right. Here's an example of these dances being done. Dancer's rotation is very straightforward. Your entire rotation revolves around fishing for procs and spending them at the right time and in the correct order. Therefore, let's start with Cascade. This ability is your filler and the start of all your procs. Use this when you do not have any other procs to use. Cascade combos into Fountain. Both of these abilities have a proc chance on them. Cascade has a 50% chance to grant Flourishing Symmetry, which allows the usage of Reverse Cascade, whereas Fountain has a 50% chance to grant Flourishing Flow, which allows the usage of Fountain Fall. Going one step further, both Fountain Fall and Reverse Cascade have the 50% chance to grant you 4-fold feathers, which can be used on Fandance 1 and Fandance 2. Both of these fan dances then have a 50% chance to proc 3-fold dance, which allows the usage of Fandance 3. All of the GCD abilities previously mentioned also generate Esprit. When you reach 50 of this resource, you can spend it on Saber Dance, a hard-hitting GCD ability. It's important to note that overcapping or overriding procs is very bad. So use your Reverse Cascade procs before using your Cascade, and use your Fountain Fall before using another Fountain. For Saber Dance and Fan Dance, it's important to pull them for your 2-minute burst windows. Only use Saber Dance if you're above 80 gauge, and only use Fan Dance if you have 4 feathers saved up and Fan Dance 3 is not up. And finally, use Fan Dance 3 whenever you have the proc available. This is your basic rotation. On top of this, you only have your 2-minute burst window and your cooldown. So let's get into this. Your first cooldown is Standard Step. Using this ability initiates a dance. Perform the 2 random steps and reuse the ability. This will deal a notable amount of damage to all enemies within 15 yalms and apply a 5% damage buff to you and your dance partner. Use standard step on the cooldown. Your second cooldown is Flourish. This OGCD grants you a single stack of all of your procs, except for Fan Dance 1. It is important to only use Flourish if you do not already have Fan Dance 3 procced to avoid overriding. As per 6.1, this doesn't matter for Reverse Cascade and Fountain Falls. These stocks now stack additive with Flourish. Alongside the earlier mentioned procs, Flourish also grants you the ability to use Fan Dance 4. Simply weave this in whenever you can. Lastly, your 2-minute cooldowns are Devilment and Technical Step. Devilment grants you and your dance partner a 20% crit and a direct hit rating for 20 seconds, whilst Technical Step gives your entire party a 5% flat damage buff. On top of this, Devilment grants you the ability to use Starfall Dance, and Technical Finish allows you to use Tilana, which share the same button as Technical Finish. Since these abilities are on a 2-minute cooldown, there's a specific sequence of how to use them. Outside of that, you do not have to worry about these abilities. This brings us to the opener and 2-minute burst. Since Dancer heavily revolves around RNG procs, your opener and 2-minute burst will never be the exact same. This is why you should learn the priority of your procs and how to deal with them in the correct order. For the opener, we use standard step about 15.5 seconds before the pool. Do both of the random steps and hold off from finishing the dance. Use Peloton to keep your melees friendly and pre-pot at 1.5 seconds left. Instantly afterwards, finish your standard step before going into technical step. Use all 4 steps and do the technical finish. Single weave in Devilment and use Starfall Dance afterwards. Inside this GCD, use both Flourish and Fan Dance 3 before continuing into Tilana and Fan Dance 4. Now this is where the RNG starts to factor in. Depending on the RNG of you and your dance partner, your Esprit gauge will look differently. From here on out, focus on spending all of your Fan Dance 1's procs and their corresponding Fan Dance 3 procs, whilst preventing Esprit from overcapping by using Saber Dance as much as possible. Once you're out of Esprit, use up your Fountain Fall and Reverse Cascade procs, and use your standard step on cooldown. Here's an example of the opener being done properly. For the 2-minute burst window, we do the exact same thing except for the pre-pull parts. Use technical step on cooldown and go into our burst in the exact same manner afterwards. It is worth noting that the opener and the 2-minute burst are the most difficult parts of the rotation. It is recommended to practice the opener several times before stepping further into the rotation. Our step priority is as follows: crit over determination, over direct hit, over skill speed. Most of the time, higher item level pieces are better than lower item level pieces, regardless of any substats that they hold. However, Dancer is one of the jobs where a very specific GCD is key to your rotation. This is why there are exceptions for accessories with skill speed. Use the gear calculator linked in the description to double check whether an item is an upgrade for you or not. This guide is also made with no particular tier in mind, so for your current best in slot list, please visit the Balance Discord's Dancer resource channel. These will have a list of items that you're aiming to obtain. As previously mentioned, Dancer brings a lot of utility to the raid. By properly using these, you can lessen the strain on your healers by a sizable amount and allow them to spend more time DPSing. This makes your kills faster and in turn also gives you more DPS, as they will be pumping more damage into your raid buffs. The first ability to talk about is Shield Samba. This ability has a 90-second cooldown and applies a 15-second buff to all nearby party members that reduces all damage taken by 10%. This is one of the strongest damage mitigations a DPS can bring, because you do not have to target the boss to apply it, and since the duration is considerably longer than both Feint and Adel. It is worth to know that both Bard and Machinist have their own versions of Shield Samba. They are named Troubadour and Tactician. These three abilities are functionally the same and do not stack. Instead, they override each other. Keep this in mind when in a party with another physical ranged. Next up is Curing Waltz. This 60-second cooldown heals party members in a free arm range around you and your dance partner for a small amount. That said, if you and your dance partner are stacked up, the heal becomes notably potent. Having your party stack up within this free arm circle can mitigate a good chunk of damage on a fairly short cooldown. Moving on to Improvisation. This ability, when used, starts stacking up a regen on all party members within an 8 yalm range. It also grants a stack of Rising Rhythm every 3 seconds up to a maximum of 4 stacks. When the ability is used, the button changes to Improvised Finish. This applies a barrier equal to a certain percentage of the max player's HP. Using this ability makes you unable to do damage. This is why it's recommended to only fully channel the ability if there's no boss or adds targetable and rate-wide damage is going out. If the boss does not become untargetable, you can use the ability in between another GCD ability. On low ping, you're also able to weave in Improvised Finish without clipping. If you are struggling to do this, then simply do not use the finish and only improvise. Here's an example of that being done. Next up, we have one of my favorite abilities in the game, an Advant. This OGCD ability stacks up to 3 times and lets you quickly dash for 10 yalms in a straight line. Using this ability at key moments makes you hypermobile. Lastly, dancers also have the standard physical range job actions. These include Leg Race, a 40% slow that lasts for 10 seconds. Second Wind, a potent self-heal with a long cooldown. Use this when caught in a dire situation. Foot Grace, a 10-second long route that disappears when the target takes damage. Peloton, a rate-wide buff that increases everyone's movement speed. This buff does not work in combat, so use this only during the pre-pull to help your melees get to the boss faster or in between pulls in dungeons. Head Grace, an interrupt on a short cooldown, and finally Arm's Length. This will be your knockback immunity. Lastly, I want to talk about a few smaller notes that I didn't believe fit in any of the previous categories. If you have higher ping, you might have issues double weaving or weaving after standard finish, technical finish or Talana. This makes the job perform significantly worse. However, there are ways to deal with this. For PC users, you can use No Clippy or FFXIV Alexander to increase the spell queue time window. For both PC users and console users, you can use a VPN to get a better route to the server, possibly reducing your ping that way. For more information, check the Balance Discord. XIV Analysis is a useful tool to help you analyze your rotation. Simply put in your FF Logs report to see what you can improve upon. I recommend using this frequently whilst learning the job.